All right, so let's talk about the principles of interpersonal communication. One of the first principles is that interpersonal communication conveys both content and relationship. So, whenever you communicate with somebody, you're not only sharing a meaning to get things done, but you're also always making your relationship with that person. And anything that you said can have multiple meanings. Not talking to them can increase your relationship or decrease your relationship. And it's interesting when you bring in culture to this because even things like different formalities of language can greatly tell you what your relationship is with that person. So in Spanish, using tú versus usted can make a big difference in your relationship of, oh, are we not friends? Or why are you talking so formally to me? Or how about the reverse? Are you disrespecting me? Do you not see me as your boss? All these kind of things that can come up. So you're both conveying content and the relationship that you have with the person. Another principle is that interpersonal communication is intentional or unintentional. So you can intentionally try to share different messages, you're trying to convey meaning, and a lot of times what you're trying to describe gets to the other person perfectly, right? And sometimes when you are sending messages, you may have nonverbals that maybe contradict what you're verbally saying. So you may say, I'm fine, but maybe you said it with a sigh or a lower tone. And so you can see how unintentionally you're contradicting your own message, and that may cause a person to lean in more and clarify. You may not even be aware of some of your nonverbals. Most of the unintentional messages come from our nonverbals because we don't necessarily control those as easily as our words, right? So you may be nervous and you may not notice and you're just clicking away, you're clicking a pen in class, or you're moving around, you're looking around a lot more, and you may not even recognize that you're actually expressing that you're nervous or that you're uncomfortable. And this is something that other people might pick up on, and this is something that you should be aware of because you're sending unintentional messages. All right, the next one is that language, interpersonal communication is irreversible. So this means that once you say something, you might be able to say, just kidding, but it doesn't take anything away, right? Once the message is out there, then the feelings may arise, a person may be hurt. You can explain something away, and it doesn't mean that it is forever going to hurt a person, but it's still going to be an impact that it was once one of the communication relationships that you had with that person. And so think about those interactions that you had and how much you wish that you could take something back. Even you can see it, a lot of celebrities say something and then they try to take it back, they try to delete it off their profile. But nowadays, even things that you put online that you think that you can just get rid of, a lot of times they'll circle back to them 10 years later. And so just realize that no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're saying, realize that there's no way of completely reversing it once it's in the atmosphere. All right. And then the last one is that it's dynamic. It takes place over two people, but also multiple contexts, right? So thinking about that transactional model of communication that we have and the dynamic nature of yourself. You're always changing, you're always in flux, and you can't repeat the same conversation twice, basically. So the conversation that you had with your mother, even if you just try to recreate it perfectly and have it with your father, you have a different relationship, you have different viewpoints, different contexts, different times of day, might greatly impact that conversation. And you can't necessarily predict how a conversation will go because of this dynamic nature of conversations. So, these are just some things that I want you to start to think about and how it impacts your relationships.